Picture this. You're strapped into a Formula One cockpit, doing 200 miles per hour wheel-to-wheel with another driver, and the only thing separating you from catastrophe is decades of engineering precision and split-second human judgment. That's the opening sensation Joseph Kosinski delivers in F1, and it's exactly where this film succeeds most powerfully. Not as a sports movie, but as a meditation on what happens when human legacy collides with technological evolution. Let's acknowledge what's immediately apparent. F1 employs every comeback sports drama cliché in the handbook. Sonny Hayes, Brad Pitt's veteran driver, returns after decades away to mentor young Joshua Pierce while proving he still has what it takes. It's Top Gun Maverick on four wheels, complete with the mentor-protégé dynamic and the question of whether experience can compete with youth. But here's where Kosinski and his team demonstrate craft intelligence. They're not trying to hide these conventions, they're weaponizing them. The film's $200 to $300 million budget wasn't spent disguising familiar beats, but amplifying them through unprecedented authenticity. When Hayes crashes at Monza in that spectacular wet race sequence, it's not just another sports movie setback, it's a visceral reminder that in Formula One, the line between technological mastery and human fallibility is measured in milliseconds. The script, while structurally predictable, gains complexity through its cultural specificity. This is an American film about a European-dominated sport, and that tension permeates every frame. The narrative doesn't just pit old versus new, it examines how American storytelling conventions translate when applied to a sport where tradition and innovation aren't just themes, they're matters of survival. The film's international box office performance reflects this cultural negotiation. 69% of its $571 million gross came from international markets where F1 isn't just entertainment, it's cultural identity. Brad Pitt anchors this machine with a performance that understands the assignment completely. At 61, Pitt isn't trying to convince us he's a young hotshot, he's embodying the weight of legacy itself. His Sonny Hayes carries decades of racing history in his posture, his decision-making, his relationship with risk. Pitt's collaboration as producer with seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton shows in the authenticity of his physical performance. The way he handles the steering wheel, positions his body in the cockpit, responds to G-forces. All of this demonstrates genuine understanding. Damson Idris as Joshua Pierce provides the necessary counterpoint, but more importantly, he represents the film's central question about innovation. His performance captures the hunger of youth without falling into bratty cliches, largely because director Joseph Kosinski, fresh off Top Gun Maverick, understands how to calibrate generational dynamics without condescension. Kosinski's directorial approach here builds directly on his Top Gun Maverick template, but with crucial differences. Where Top Gun dealt with aviation's past and future, F1 examines a sport that exists in perpetual technological revolution. Kosinski's camera work during the race sequences doesn't just capture speed, it captures the mathematical precision required to control that speed. His collaboration with Jerry Bruckheimer shows in the film's commitment to practical effects and real locations, shooting actual Grand Prix weekends at Silverstone and Monza rather than relying purely on digital recreation. The supporting ensemble, including the various team principals and mechanics, serves a crucial function beyond mere authenticity. They represent the invisible army of innovation that makes F1 possible, reinforcing the film's thesis that tradition and technology require human synthesis to function.
This is where F1 transcends its narrative limitations and becomes something genuinely remarkable. The sound design, led by supervising mixer Juan Peralta, placed microphones directly on Formula 2 cars driven by the lead actors, capturing what they call full-fat sounds of engines and track ambience. The result isn't just realistic, it's physiologically immersive. When Hayes downshifts through Eau Rouge at Spa, you feel the compression in your chest. Hans Zimmer's hybrid orchestral electronic score functions as more than accompaniment. It's structural commentary. The electronic elements represent F1's technological sophistication, while the orchestral components embody the human drama and historical weight. This musical duality reinforces the central tension between legacy and innovation that drives the entire film. Kosinski's cinematography strategy deserves particular attention. The film was engineered specifically for IMAX and large format screens, with these premium formats accounting for 25% of US sales and 20% globally. But this isn't just technical showmanship. The immersive visual approach serves the film's thematic purpose. When you're watching an IMAX screening, the visceral experience of speed becomes inseparable from the narrative tension between human skill and mechanical precision. The editing patterns during racing sequences demonstrate sophisticated understanding of racing dynamics. Rather than relying on rapid-fire cuts that obscure spatial relationships, the editing maintains geographic clarity while building temporal urgency. The pit stop sequences, in particular, showcase F1's collaborative innovation, the split-second choreography of tire changes and strategy adjustments that can determine race outcomes. So what do all of this evidence reveal? F1 succeeds not despite its familiar narrative framework, but through its sophisticated deployment of that framework to examine something genuinely complex: how legacy and innovation negotiate their relationship in high-stakes environments. The film's core analytical truth emerges from its cultural positioning. This is American cinema examining a European sport, using Hollywood storytelling conventions to explore themes that transcend cultural boundaries. The universal tension between tradition and innovation gets filtered through the specific lens of Formula One racing, where both elements aren't philosophical concepts, they're engineering requirements. The comeback narrative becomes a vehicle for exploring how expertise transfers across technological generations. Hayes doesn't succeed because he's still the fastest driver. He succeeds because his decades of experience provide context for understanding how new technology can be optimized. The mentorship dynamic with Pierce isn't just about passing wisdom, it's about synthesizing historical knowledge with contemporary capability. This synthesis explains the film's global appeal and its cultural impact. International audiences responded not just to the spectacular racing sequences, but to a narrative that validates both respect for tradition and embrace of innovation. The film's commercial success, becoming Apple Original Films' highest-grossing theatrical release, demonstrates that audiences hunger for stories that don't force them to choose between heritage and progress. F1 leaves us with a provocative challenge. In our rapidly evolving technological landscape, how do we maintain connection to human expertise while embracing unprecedented innovation? The film suggests that the answer isn't choosing between tradition and progress, but finding the synthesis that honors both. In Formula One, that synthesis happens at 200 miles per hour, where decades of racing wisdom must integrate with cutting-edge engineering in real time. The question for us, as viewers and as participants in our own rapidly changing world, is whether we can achieve that same integration in our own lives, and whether the stakes of getting it wrong are as clear to us as they are on the racing circuit.